General Hospital will reveal that under the shadow of buried secrets, the death of Austin remains a huge question mark in the hearts of the residents of Port Charles. They only know that the dedicated doctor was mysteriously murdered, but no one could have imagined that the one behind this brutal killing was none other than Cyrus, the man who once instilled fear in the town. Cyrus didn't kill Austin in a moment of impulse. It was a carefully calculated act, driven by the fear that Austin might betray him by handing over important evidence of his criminal activities to the PCPD. Since his pardon, Cyrus had continuously appeared in Austin's life, playing the role of a remorseful man trying to reform. He visited Austin's home daily, showing false concern, but in reality, it was to control every movement of the doctor, keeping an eye out for any signs that Austin might turn against him. But even though Austin didn't openly resist Cyrus, he still didn't trust him. When he discovered that Austin had plans to hand over evidence of his criminal activities, Cyrus acted without hesitation. He decided to strike before Austin had a chance to act. That night, Austin had no idea he was walking into a deadly trap. When he returned home after a long shift, Cyrus was waiting, hiding in the shadows. Before Austin could react, he was attacked with a fatal blow. The sharp pain in his chest as Austin realized he had been stabbed, but before he could scream for help, he was shoved to the floor. Cyrus stared at the man who was gradually losing his breath, his face expressionless. He crouched down, checking Austin's heartbeat to ensure he was truly dead before searching the house. Not stopping there, Cyrus seized this opportunity to steal digitalis, a toxic substance that Austin had kept for medical research. He understood its value, not just as a murder weapon that left no trace but also as a tool to further his dark schemes in the future. He knew that if used in the right dosage, digitalis could cause heart failure, making the death appear as a natural stroke, undetectable by conventional methods. After taking what he needed, Cyrus staged the scene, making Austin's death look like an anonymous murder with no clear motive. The next morning, when Austin's body was discovered, Port Charles was shaken. The police were involved, but there were no traces left, no one was suspected, and there was no clue leading to the real killer. Cyrus stood outside, continuing to play the remorseful man while knowing full well that all traces had been erased. The secret of Austin's death seemed destined to remain buried forever, but fate always has a way of revealing the truth, though no one knew that day was coming soon. Things seemed to have faded into oblivion, and the memories of Austin's death slowly faded from the minds of the people of Port Charles. However, in a surprising turn of events, Josslyn, who had been diligently searching for evidence to accuse Cyrus in the attack on Dex and Sam, unintentionally uncovered an even more horrifying truth. What she found not only related to the plot to frame Dex but also revealed a shocking secret about Austin's death, a mystery thought to have been buried forever. In her investigation, Josslyn followed the trail of locations that Cyrus had visited after his pardon. She discovered an old house, once belonging to Austin, that no one had mentioned since his death. The house had been abandoned for a long time, but according to the information Josslyn gathered, it appeared that someone had been coming and going after Austin's death. A sense of unease stirred within her. With Brennan's help, Josslyn secretly infiltrated the house, searching every corner in the hope of finding a clue that could help her expose Cyrus's crimes. At first, the house seemed to have been thoroughly cleaned, with no signs left behind. But when Josslyn checked an old locked cabinet in Austin's office, she felt something was off. She managed to pry open the lock, and inside were a series of documents that Austin seemed to have carefully hidden. Josslyn quickly flipped through the pages, her heart racing as she realized she had found something no one had ever imagined, Austin's final notes before his death. The documents revealed a chilling truth. Austin had collected evidence of Cyrus's activities, including shady transactions, secret meetings, and particularly a list of suspicious deaths he suspected were linked to him. But the most shocking thing was a file on digitalis, the poison that Austin had stored in his laboratory. According to his notes, a large amount of digitalis had mysteriously disappeared right after he started investigating the unexplained deaths at the hospital. Austin suspected that Cyrus had stolen this drug to carry out his sophisticated murders without leaving a trace. Josslyn dug deeper, trying to piece together the clues Austin had left behind. She found a short note, possibly the last lines Austin wrote before being killed. In it, Austin mentioned that he had concrete evidence to accuse Cyrus and had planned to turn it over to the police. But he never had the chance to do so. And now, the evidence he had once tried to protect was in Josslyn's hands. Realizing the gravity of this discovery, Josslyn felt a chill run down her spine. She not only held the key to exposing Cyrus in the attack on Dex but also was the only one who could uncover the truth about Austin's death. These documents were irrefutable evidence, and if they fell into the wrong hands, they could make her Cyrus's next target. But Josslyn knew she couldn't stop now. She was closer than ever to the truth that had been hidden for so long. And this time, she wouldn't let Cyrus's crimes be buried again. However, unveiling this secret meant putting herself in danger. Josslyn understood that if she acted carelessly, Cyrus would have no hesitation in doing to her what he had done to Austin. The truth she held not only had the power to send Cyrus to prison but also to expose all the crimes he had hidden for years. She knew she couldn't face such a dangerous person alone. One wrong move, one small mistake, could make her the next target. She needed an ally, someone who could help her bring the evidence to light without Cyrus noticing. And in her desperate search for help, she thought of Brennan. Jack Brennan, with his extensive connections and experience handling complex situations, was the only person Josslyn could trust at this point. She knew that Brennan not only had the resources but also understood how criminals like Cyrus worked, those who always knew how to cover their tracks. When Josslyn approached Brennan and presented what she had found, she saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes, but it quickly turned to seriousness. Brennan realized the danger of the situation, but he also understood that this was their one chance to bring down Cyrus for good. It didn't take long for Brennan to devise a plan. First, he helped Josslyn copy all the documents Austin had left, ensuring that if anything happened, there would still be evidence to expose Cyrus. Next, he contacted a trusted officer in the PCPD, someone he knew wouldn't be swayed by Cyrus's influence. Using a series of safety measures, Brennan and Josslyn managed to send the crucial documents to the police without leaving a trace, making sure Cyrus would have no chance to intervene before the case went public. As soon as the PCPD received the documents, the case quickly became the center of attention. The police immediately reopened the investigation into Austin's death, and this time, they had undeniable evidence. Austin's notes not only confirmed that Cyrus was the one who murdered him, but they also provided clues about a series of other suspicious deaths linked to him. The victims, who had previously been thought to have died of natural causes or accidents, now all had one thing in common: digitalis. This poison had been stolen from Austin's laboratory, and now, it was the clearest piece of evidence. When this information leaked, Port Charles was in shock. A wave of outrage spread as the townspeople realized that Cyrus was not only a manipulator but a cold-blooded murderer. Layers of mystery were slowly peeled away, revealing the horrifying truth about a series of crimes that Cyrus had concealed for years. Those who had once stood by him began to fear, some trying to distance themselves to avoid being implicated, while those who had remained silent out of fear began to speak up. Now, Cyrus had nowhere to hide. He may have successfully concealed the truth for a long time, but in the end, justice found him. Austin's death would not be forgotten, and Josslyn, who had bravely uncovered this secret, had brought light to the truths that had once been buried in darkness. As the news spread, Port Charles was shaken by the shocking revelations. The media quickly picked up the story, causing a public outcry. The townspeople couldn't believe that they had been living under the shadow of a cold-blooded murderer, who had manipulated everything with his intricate schemes. Austin's death, once considered an unsolved mystery, had now become the focal point of a large-scale investigation, turning the entire city's legal system into a battle to bring justice to the deceased. The evidence Josslyn provided was irrefutable. Austin's documents, the notes on the disappearance of Digitalis, along with the links to Cyrus, had exposed all the crimes he had been trying to cover up for years. The police had no choice but to reopen the case and quickly issue an arrest warrant for Cyrus. The day he was arrested, Port Charles seemed to stand still for a moment. A crowd gathered outside the police station, watching every development, waiting for the moment when the criminal would bow before justice. But what was even more shocking was that those who had once been behind him were now beginning to surface. Cyrus's loyal followers, who had helped him cover up his crimes, were now turning on him to protect themselves. Some revealed secrets they had kept hidden, trying to reduce their sentences by cooperating with the police. This only added to the shock of the case, as a whole new list of suspects emerged. Those who had once believed Cyrus was untouchable were now panicking as his criminal empire collapsed before their eyes. Throughout this process, Josslyn faced danger on multiple occasions. Cyrus may have been arrested, but those still loyal to him weren't likely to let this slide easily. She kept receiving threats, warnings that she would pay for interfering with his affairs. But instead of backing down, Josslyn became more determined. She knew that if she let fear take over, all of Austin's efforts and her own would be in vain. She stood up, not just to demand justice for Austin, but to ensure that Port Charles would never again be manipulated by Cyrus. When the trial of Cyrus took place, Josslyn appeared as a key witness. She presented every piece of evidence, every fact, every part of the puzzle about his crimes. Her testimony, along with Austin's documents, made the trial a verdict that couldn't be overturned. Finally, the judge sentenced Cyrus to return to prison, where he should have never been released from. When the sentence was announced, a wave of relief spread through Port Charles. The townspeople, who had lived in fear for so long, could finally breathe easy. Justice had been served. Josslyn, after everything she had been through, stood still in that moment. She knew that her path had not been easy, that what she had done was not simply exposing a murderer but bringing the truth to those who had lost. She thought of Austin, of his final moments, of his determination to bring Cyrus to light. And now, finally, he had received justice. Austin's death was no longer a case lost to oblivion but had become a pivotal turning point, marking the downfall of Cyrus. Port Charles, after so much pain, had finally received an answer to the mysterious death of Austin, a secret that had once been buried but would never be forgotten.